Good afternoon. It's Angela and Chris at Temple in the Sun. Trigger warning, we're going to be talking about sexual abuse, sexual misconduct, how this is running rampant in the plant medicine community and how it's being brought up in the collective currently.
Yeah, this is such a necessary conversation. As a childhood sexual violence survivor, I was violated in a child pornography and sex trafficking ring starting at the age of 3. This is something I've struggled with my entire life. Do we speak up? How do we speak up? And for me, how do I speak up? How do I do everything in life to create a better quality of life for myself? And it's a really big deal, I think, with the advocacy and the people who are speaking up, and they're using, I think many, I'm going to say this stuff, you guys, they're using speaking up and their advocacy as a way to distract from where they can really make their life better by taking this experience that they had and sitting with it internally, asking themselves, it feels like when, going to the very core of the trigger and the wound, and making their life better as a result of what happens to them today.
What's important is that most people aren't going to the original core and wound. So why Chris and I speak about this and how we're different when it comes to sexual abuse, everything that is manifesting on the planet and in your life as an adult is a direct experience of core wounds that have been unexpressed and unaddressed. We can all agree upon now that trauma is the gateway drug, right? Trauma is the result of why we live on a planet that is in normalized abuse situations and experiences that's perpetuating the planet. And well, why isn't this in the plant medicine community? Absolutely is at an alarming rate, because the plant medicine community is a microcosm of the macrocosm, and it is just going to exacerbate what already lives inside of each of us.
And sitting with the fact that, and this was a struggle for me, because when I started in the plant medicine community, I had been doing medicine work for 4 years in the privacy of my own home, because as a survivor myself, I was terrified to go out there and trust anyone in my vulnerable state. And the very first time I ever went out and did medicine with other people, holding space for me, it brought me exactly where I needed to go, and I had one of the biggest breakthroughs of my life, but it wasn't necessarily gentle, and it wasn't necessarily loving. And while I recognize that in much of our patriarchal medicine communities, gentle and loving is not embraced, it's not seen as ancient traditions, we're here to change things up. We are here to do things differently. I had a traumatic experience in my first retreat with others, so much so that to this day, I won't do rape. I have no interest in that medicine at all, because I was restrained while it was administered to me. And I struggle with saying that out loud, but it brought me back to being restrained at 3 in a child pornography and sex trafficking ring, and it helped me to move the energy that I need to move. But we don't have to do medicine like this. And so many people are out there in the medicine community and they don't know better. I started doing medicine in another community where the person I was supporting, I would go in and specifically help survivors of sexual violence to move that energy out of their bodies. But at the same time, the facilitator would take people from ceremony back to a private bedroom, saying that they needed to be held in ceremony. And she would host private ceremonies for people and have sex with them in the medicine. And then she would tell me. And I really, really struggled with, do I speak up? Do I just not send people there? You know, I knew I wasn't going to go there and do the work anymore, but this is really, really hard. I went to facilitator training with them, and they had 40 people in this worldwide organization. Their trainer told me in the medicine that I need to be held, came behind me, wrapped herself around me, leaned into my neck, nuzzled me, and whispered, "When was the last time you had a man at your back?" Here at Temple in the Sun, we hold people in the medicine. I hold people in the medicine. I hold people in a public space. I hold people in a sacred way. If I'm so much as going to touch their hand, and this is everything that we tell our support team, I ask permission. I'm going to touch their feet. If I'm going to touch the top of their head, I ask for permission. And it's all done in public space. And we see a lot of dating and relationships that start in the medicine community as well. My mainstream career was in academia. Seeing professors date and marry their students, there's a fine line here. And what does that look like? How long do we wait as facilitators from the point that somebody has come through and done medicine, opened up in the deepest of vulnerability in our sacred space? When is it then appropriate for us to think that we're just dating someone and it's a relationship? There are so many intricacies here, so many things that are tough to make sense of. And I know you've been through it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was pretty much turned off from the beginning of holding space just because I've had people come on to me and try and kiss me in the medicine, and completely inappropriate.
And I don't know that people recognize, because so many people feel loving in the medicine, and they especially feel loving in the medicine when they're trying to avoid going to their trauma. And they particularly feel attracted to their facilitators when they're trying to distract from their own pain. But again, this was my academic career as well. Students had, they would just ask us out in the classroom like nothing. And it's something that we experience in the medicine community as well. And it's our job to hold that sacred space always, to know that it's not appropriate for a good length of time to have personal experiences with people who are looking to us as their guide. But where is that line? And how do we decide what that looks like? And then do we talk about and name names and go through all this stuff when in fact we are being brought to a vibrational match that is serving us to bring us back into ourselves, to address what we've yet to see. There are still people going to this medicine community here.
Yeah, and I feel like honestly we need to say that again, because that what you just said often goes unheard, right? So many people that are a part of big groups that know that these people have made inappropriate sexual advances on the people who come to them. They've taken advantage of them. Maybe they've slept with some of the participants, whether they're two consenting adults or they're influenced by the medicine. Again, I'm not here to be the person that blames or judges people, because I feel like shaming people doesn't bring about healing. And again, just like Chris said, I'm a childhood sexual abuse victim, survivor. I was deeply and horrifically abused by many men. And so I had a lot of that terror and fear coming into the community, and rightfully so, because it was bringing me to core wounds I was unconscious of inside myself. So there's a vibrational match. Whether you're a victim or a predator, you cannot be a predator without first being a victim. It's just like
impossible. It is impossible.
So the predators, and I'm not excusing anyone's behavior.
No.
So if that's where you're hearing me go, then you might want to delete this video, because you're not going to be able to hear me truly from a heart-centered space. Every predator, including all the ones that preyed upon me, were first victims themselves. And probably 10 times out of 10 childhood victims in really horrendous ways, because a healthy, loving adult does not victimize other women or men or children ever.
Happy, healthy people don't wake up one morning, sexually violate a child, and go back to their happy, healthy life.
Or even cross sexual boundaries, because those have been crossed within them. So again, it's a vibrational match, and you're just perpetuating a behavior cycle, an abuse cycle that has been done to you. Again, this doesn't excuse behavior, but when I began to unpack my core wounds, my entire life finally made sense. My behaviors finally made sense. the way that I thought and felt and the way that I was unsafe in the entire world made sense. And until you unpack that within you, the entire world does not make sense, because the shame and blame and judgment that we continue to vomit out into the world and that rules and runs our life, the undercurrents that drive who we are, have not been addressed.
And we are by no means excusing those who are taking advantage of their power in medicine work.
Ever.
I came to this work because I was a physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive mother. When someone is violating another human being, they know it. Those of you who are violating other human beings, you know it. Stop. Get some fucking help. I stopped, I got help, it brought me to this world. Now, I'm a member of the Speakers Bureau for the largest anti-sexual violence organization in the country. And so people will often come to me and ask me what I think about a lot of horrific things that happen in our world that relate to sexual violence. And there is no excuse to continue to perpetuate the cycle of putting your pain on another person. I'm going to say it again. There's no excuse for continuing to perpetuate the cycle of putting your pain on another human being by sexually violating them and taking advantage of your power in this medicine community. No excuse. Get some fucking help. For those of you who have been violated, use it to your advantage. Take back your motherfucking power. Go to where that is taking you. Go to the depths of your childhood. Find the vibrational match, because you're worthy of a better experience. Clear it. You will never be a vibrational match with people who are violating other people ever again. But we have got to dig deep. We have got to find that worthiness. We have got to heal ourselves and stop pointing the fingers at other people to distract from our own pain. I will also say, this is just Chris and Angela's opinion. And if this does not resonate with you, there's no reason to tell us it doesn't resonate with you. Just keep it moving. But this is how we have found peace as survivors of sexual violence ourselves, and as survivors of sexual violence in our medicine community and before our medicine community.
And how we've been able to clear that within ourselves. If you, one, feel the need to comment to defend your life, your experience, another person, that's again just bringing you to your own work. We don't post this video for you to defend your life, your experiences, your thoughts, your opinions. This is simply us hearing and feeling what's being brought up in the collective, and us giving voice to the work that we actually already do within ourselves, and a sacred safe space that we hold for women and for men at a level that needs to be the standard in the medicine community.
If you've seen the videos that are circulating around where people are naming names of those that violated them, and you're triggered and you're on the post with other people talking about what a disgusting, filthy human being that person is, sit with it for a moment. Invite spirit, invite the medicine to help you remember when you were a predator. We have all been everything. Oof. I can't wait to read the comments. We have all been everything. When I faced that I was abusive in this lifetime, when I remembered my previous lifetime when I was a terrible, a friggin' serial killer, I started to recognize the pain of the collective here in 2021 from that lifetime many, many lifetimes ago. We are all the same. We have all been every color, every ethnicity, every, everything on this planet, every gender, and we have all been the victim and we have all been the perpetrator. Sexual violence is the most righteous judgment on this planet. You put someone who has sexually violated a child in prison, and other prisoners righteously take it upon themselves to abuse that human being. We've got to look at this. It's time to look at this. we've got to end this cycle
of abuse, because what you're doing is you're continuing to abuse adults that are just trapped in the childhood abuse. They're in that cycle. So I remember I was in the bathtub. Elijah was maybe 3, 4 at the oldest, or maybe 2. I don't know, right around that time. And this thought just came barreling in, just like for me to molest him when he was little. And I was like, what? And at that time, I had only remembered one memory of being molested when I was younger. So I had some awareness, but not to the extent and depth of awareness that I have to the abuse that I endured now. I stopped bathing with my son. I no longer could care for him in that way because it was so disgusting. And now that I know, like, that my father was abused, that my father abused me, that his mother was abused, like, this is generational. Like, each generation has abused the next. And again, this is not strangers. The majority of the planet does not even remember their abuse because we, out of safety, have to block it from our memories, that we're not going to remember. Most people will remember maybe a babysitter abusing them, but they can't remember their parents abusing them. We didn't have safe adults around us, and so we're recreating that in a safe space in the medicine community where we don't have safe adults around us, because we're trying to, at the deepest levels of our psyches, remember to break cycles. We are ancestral chain breakers. But you must, if you want to come into this level of freedom, break the chains within yourself. And you don't do that by pointing a finger outside of you ever. The outside's always an invitation or a trigger to remember. And yes, holding adults accountable, but not in a way that's going to shame them, that doesn't create healthy, healed adults when we've all deserve to be healthy, healed adults. And I know I've heard people say there's a special place in hell for child abusers. Can you imagine how abused they were as children? And that they are already in that special place in hell inside them to perpetuate any of that ever.
All day, every day.
This
they
does
live
not
in that special place in
excuse
hell.
any
We're not
person
excusing anyone.
ever that has ever touched you or harmed you or abused you. I don't excuse any of the people that ever touched me, harmed me, or abused me. They were very, very sick individuals. But for my own health and healing, I had to come to a deep level of sense of meeting those unmet feelings in myself, holding myself in a way that was loving and kind that no one outside of me could ever do until I could do it inside. That I could become the safe space inside myself over and over and over again. We are constantly looking outside of ourselves to forget.
1 in 2 women and 1 in 4 men are sexually violated before the age of 18. And 90% of those violations are by someone they know. Your coach, your teacher, your mom, your dad,
your babysitter, your uncle, your grandparents.
And yeah, it's a very sick statistic. And I really think that it's actually more than that, because that's only the people who self-identify. So I will just suggest that as you listen to this, if Angela and Chris are pissing you the fuck off, please let's start ending this cycle. If this video is making you angry, if it is pushing your buttons, it's because those buttons live inside of you
and carry a deep wound behind them.
And it's time. It's time we stop pointing our fingers to our medicine community and to our world, and we start sitting with what hurts inside of us. Everything that happens outside of us, everything that happens outside of us without exception, if we want to take back our power, everything that happens outside of us is a call to come home inside of us to do the work.
And absolutely, if somebody has abused you, find a safe person to tell. Speaking up is important. We're not saying don't speak up. Speak up. Find a safe person. Find a therapist. Work with, there's so many sexual abuse centers that are for women and children, that are for men. Like, you have to reach out. You have to be creating these help-seeking behaviors and stop isolating. This is perpetuating the abuse cycle as well. Being able to talk about it, by being able to move through those feelings, by being able to see how that one event is actually likely tied to many events and likely tied to deeper, hidden events from childhood that you have yet to discover.
Medicine is perfect. The medicine is perfect. Plants, the earth medicines, far, far smarter than we could ever be. And they're going to do their work. They're going to take us where we need to go, not necessarily where we want to go, but where we need to go, always. How do we move forward if we've been violated in ceremony? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can text 741 741. This is crisistext.org. And you can simply say, I need free sexual violence therapy in my area. All you do is send a text to 741 741, crisistext.org, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and they will find you free sexual violence support in your area.
If you are still struggling and you want to reach out to Chris or I, we do work with clients one-on-one in this area, and we also do hold sacred ceremonies for women only to address this stuff specifically. So please feel free. Again, if you're triggered and you want to respond and justify and defend yourself, we invite you to sit with what's being triggered that's leading you to a wound that you're unaware of currently. We send you so much love and blessings. Really, it's time to stop the cycle, and we're here to just bring a voice to that. We love you all so much. We hold you deeply in our hearts, and we look forward to you being able to hold yourself in that same way one day. Love you.
Aho.